Okay, you're live now.
Okay, great. Thank you, Linda, and welcome to the Boundaries panel this evening, everybody. So we're here. We'll be meeting and discussing some proposed changes to polling locations. There's a little bit of business just to get through before that. So do we have any apologies at all? I'm not aware of any, but I am aware of a substitution. So welcome and thank you to Councillor Donnelly, subbing in on behalf of Councillor Mason this evening. That takes us over to the anything to be discussed in private, but there's nothing on the agenda that I'm aware of. Councillor Conlon is just joining us any moment, which is good. Urgent matters, again, there's nothing that I'm aware of, so we can move straight through. Declarations of interest. It's one of those moments where we could all declare that we're councillors and there's an election happening, but we're not affected by this one, any of us. So we can go straight on again and onto the minutes of the previous meetings. So first of all, there's the meeting from October 2019, which seems a long time ago now. And I'm not sure how many of this panel were actually involved in that meeting. I think John would have been, Anthony, yeah, we can see on there, but are we happy to agree those? They all look okay to me.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And then there's minutes of an urgent decision that I took in November, which I'm happy to agree as well, of course, having taken that was a late change that became necessary. So I think we're happy then to proceed and move on to the main item agenda, the main agenda item even, which is the proposal for changes to some polling station locations. And this is for Ross Jackson. I think will come in now. Ross, if you want to kick us off, thanks.
I'm not sure that Ross is here. Oh, yes, you are.
No, I am here. Helen, do you want me to lead off, or Helen, you okay for me to lead off?
Yeah, that's fine. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So it's to as per. Hi. Maybe my internet's struggling, but if you can hear me, hopefully. Thank you everybody for attending today. It's to agree the replacement of 11 polling places ahead of the forthcoming GLA elections on the 6th of May, and also for the now confirmed 3 by-elections that will be taking place in Ealing Broadway Ward, Hanger Hill Ward, and Hobain Ward. So all going on the 6th of May. So the reasons for replacements are a mixture. Some are due to unavailability, others due to COVID, health and safety restrictions, etc. So would it be reasonable to go through one by one in the list?
Yes, please, Ross. I think that'll be good. We can just take them all individually.
Okay. So the first one, as it appears on the list, I'm not sure, Keith, if you can show the map, but it's for AHA polling district in East Acton Ward. The existing polling place is King Fahd Academy. We've used this for a number of years. The school rejected our approach to use it as a polling station for this election only because the room that we use and the access to that room is not available because of school measures to do with COVID. So we've had a look around a number of differing options, and Shepherd's Bush Cricket Club is our favoured proposed alternative just for this election.
Agreed.
Are we happy with that? We'll revert back to King Fahd.
Seems sensible to me.
Are there any comments on that? Councillor Donnelly as one of the ward councillors there.
No, I mean, I think
I sort of commented to you by email, Chair. I think the only comment would be one that would apply to a lot, which is about it's about circulation management. You know, this is a venue with a gate. You know, it's a reasonably wide gate off the street, but obviously people are going to be coming and going in both directions. So that as people move in and move out, ensuring that we will still have to keep them a requisite distance apart and keep the social distancing going. So I don't think there's anything particularly difficult as it applies to Shepherd's Bush Cricket Club, but it was just that gated entrance that put it in my mind about how we manage those situations.
If it's useful, Councillor, I could just give a quick run through of what we are expecting to deliver at each and every polling stations in regards to that and other things. Would that be helpful?
Yes, if you can do that just quite briefly, Ross, then that
okay.
will help.
Okay, so very briefly, the voting process. The voting process will be almost the same, if not identical, to what you are usually used to in a polling station, i.e. an elector will walk in, confirm their details, be handed their ballot papers, they will go to the booth, they will make their choices, they will go to the ballot box, deposit their papers and leave the station. However, obviously because of COVID, we've got to put many social distancing measures in place and safety measures, and they are so effectively, as you would see in shops or supermarkets, there will be floor stickerings, 2 meter distance stickerings, wait here signs, one-way directional arrows inside and outside the station. There will be stewards employed that we don't usually use in high-vis jackets that will manage access in and out of the station, which will include the gates the councillor referred to there, where there are gates or difficulties entering the grounds of the station. Those marshals, stewards will ensure that there are socially distanced queues, that electors are using the hand sanitizer station that will be situated outside each station. They will also be responsible, the stewards, for ensuring that anybody who does not have a face covering will be issued a mask by us for when they go in. And they will also critically, which is direct correlation to some of these decisions that have been made with regards to some of these stations, be managing how many people are coming into the station at any one time. So we've got a broad range of stations, polling places, 150 of them. Some are small, the smallest are the temporary huts, to the large, great big halls. So it will be dependent on how many people go in, will be dependent on the size of the hall. And every single polling place has had a risk assessment undertaken on it for polling. Also within the stations there will be a cleaner who will be in there employed all day during the polling hours, who will be frequently cleaning all the touch points. When somebody's gone to the booth, they will be cleaning each time after a voter has been in the booth, and where they've touched ballot boxes, etc., etc., that will be cleaned throughout the day. Notices will be displayed everywhere. And electors will be advised to bring their own pen or pencil, but of course if they do not, we will supply them with a pencil, one-use pencil at the stations. And the other message on the poll card will of course be obviously to wear a mask, a face covering, as they would normally entering post offices, shops, banks, etc. So I'm not sure if anybody has any specific questions on that maybe first, or I maybe carry on with the changes.
Can I just make an observation, Mr. Jackson?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Councillor Kelly, yeah, and then I've got Mick.
Yeah, thank you. Well, just to let you know, I've been going to the Dominion Centre, and in some ways, it's you have an Ealing steward there handing out masks, sort of marshalling queues, and it works well. You know, I think people respond better to marshalling at the moment as they would normally do. I often found marshals at polling stations to be sometimes over the top. You know, to be standing there like security guards with little to do, but they do have something to do now. They have to marshal the social distancing. So I think it's good.
Thanks, Anthony. And Councillor Sabiers.
Thanks, Gareth. Yeah, it's just you mentioned Ross about protective equipment. I'm just wondering if there is any plans for adequate PPE for or the necessary PPE for the staff members, for example, the people who are actually handing out papers. Will they be with gloves? Have they got provision for that? And then a related question. I noticed in a number of the schemes that we've got later on, we're planning on kind of having 2 polling stations in one. And I appreciate that we've got stewards, and I also appreciate that we've got cleaners. I think that both of those are really, really good things. Are we going to be able to have enough people to manage if we do have quite a large turnout? I know it's a local election, so it's less likely to be as busy, but I'm just wondering whether or not we will have people that can basically swoop in on an area if it's particularly busy, or if we've got a backup in that kind of context, i.e. let's say we've got 3 staff behind the desk and one of them will come out to steward as well, just to cover that base, please. Thanks.
Yep, sure. On the PPE, we've been, as you can imagine, liaising with all kinds of organisations, Electoral Commission, our own health and safety, public health directorates, the GLRO themselves in London, and obviously following Public Health for England advice, HE advice, etc., etc. So where we are at is that all staff will be provided and requested, mandated to wear masks, number 1. Number 2, we will be providing face shields or goggles for eye protection. They will have obviously gallons of hand sanitizer, so there will be bottles on all of the table with regards to hand sanitizer, and gloves will be optional. So if a staff member wishes to wear gloves, they will be provided for. But if they do not wish to wear gloves, we're not going to mandate them to do so, provided that they regularly hand sanitize.
Okay, cool.
There will be PPE. Obviously, all staff will be trained, and instructions on how to use the PPE, wear the PPE, will form part of that training. With regards to the cleaning, obviously we've got the cleaner. They'll be using disinfectant, wipes approved to kill envelope viruses. And obviously the data sheets for those disinfectant wipes for the people that are using them will be provided, so people who have allergies and things like that will know in advance. And staff will be provided with their own personal disinfectant wipes because they may wish to disinfect their areas regularly. And there are a number of other control measures which I won't go through, but with regards to minimal handling of paper, movement between the staff, contact staff with each other, etc., etc. So there are a number of measures. I think there's an FAQs currently on Ealing's OneSpace, which if you have 5 minutes, I would read those FAQs on polling stations for staff. And if anybody has any further questions, they can always come back to me on that. I think on having enough staff, we are absolutely, we will have enough staff. We will have staff that as we normally would, where there are no shows or we need additional staff because of queues to get people through. That will still be the same. So there will be mobile poll clerks that can go to stations within 10-15 minutes of being required to do so.
Good.
So that will still be in play. I think it might be just worth mentioning as well, as part of our entire control measure, we have sent out postal vote applications to all existing in-person voters. Some of you may have received that letter and form as residents of Ealing. Again, that's just another measure where we've said to the public, look, you know, we're putting all these measures in place. Polling stations will be safe places to vote at. However, like anywhere else you go, there is certainly at peak times, there is a real risk, or as almost inevitable risk, of there being queues. So they may wish to take up the postal voting option in the short term for this one.
Okay,
so we're hoping
that
that will reduce footfall also.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah, and thanks. And Councillor Ball was next, and then Councillor Rice has indicated as well after that.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so 2 questions. So the first is, I was going to bring this up in respect to a particular station, but because Mick already mentioned the issue with a number of stations which will have more than one polling district in them. isn't there a risk in those situations that you end up with, basically double the queue? If you've got 2 polling districts full of people trying to get into the same doors, and for safety reasons, you wouldn't want to have 2 queues of people queuing next to each other as you could normally do. Isn't there an additional risk in having those shared stations?
I think, Councillor, in response to that, you're quite right to raise that. I mean, ideally, we wouldn't want double stations, but we factored that into all our recommendations. I think it's the lesser of 2 evils would be the answer to that. I think we will go on to temporary polling stations at some stage, but certainly the clear advice from a health and safety is that only 2 people will be allowed in to any temporary hut because of the size of them. That's the biggest units that we get. There was initially a push just for 1 elector to go in. Now, clearly, it takes 3 minutes on average to deal with 2 voters. So the maximum, doing the maths on that, would be 40 voters per hour in a temporary polling station. And the queues would, certainly in the ones that we've recommended for the change, would just literally be undealable with, and obviously the nature of temporary polling stations, certainly if there's a 2-meter distance in the queues, which there should be, or there or thereabouts, we could very realistically have, A, significant numbers of people in the queue, and B, a significant length of the queue. And obviously we've also then got to factor in, is the pavement wide enough? Is the pavement long enough? Is it on a junction? Is it a busy road? Are there other kind of hazards because of that? Can they stand on the grass if it was going to be wet? All kinds of factors have been factored in, and into the decision making process, we are confident where we've said we can double the station up. We've actually taken into consideration the hall size and the space for queuing outside, and obviously we will double up with the stewards in those places where we've doubled it up in a single hall. And just a lot of other things, like shouldn't say, but our best staff will be at those stations. They will be staffed more than other stations to get people through. So again, it's more or less the lesser of the 2 evils, if that makes sense. I mean, we have to hold an election during a pandemic, where we're going to be in a situation whereby large gatherings are banned in all other walks of life, yet we're going to have to get what could be up to 100 through our doors of our 150 stations between 7 and 10 o'clock on one day. So it's quite a significant challenge, not without risk, but we are putting every single measure available in to play to ensure that both the staff are safe, that the public are safe, the candidates and agents and the supporters are safe, and that likewise the voters aren't turned away by looking at queues. So just everything really, all into the decision making, and so we have considered everything.
Right, thanks for that. So one other unrelated question: what's the situation if we get some idiot that turns up and demands to be allowed to vote without wearing a mask? Are we legally allowed to turn them away, or would they be allowed to vote?
Okay, the advice is that although they have changed the regulations for that people must wear masks as they would for any other building where masks are mandated, obviously there's a small proportion of people who for medical reasons don't have to wear a mask or are exempt from wearing a mask, and you will unfortunately, Councillor, have those few that you've just said that will just refuse to. The advice from the Electoral Commission is that we don't challenge those people, and they will be allowed in still to vote, but we will, when we do the training of the stewards, they'll be obviously trained to encourage people to wear the masks wherever. But I'm afraid if we get into those situations whereby there is a confrontation, the advice certainly at the moment is that we will let them go into the station and vote without a mask on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the thing is, just in terms of handling that, would be
hoping there'll be very few.
Well, I hope so too. I guess the issue would be that other voters wouldn't want to be in the station at the same time, so there might be a kind of an issue of wait till the station's clear and then let them in on their own. Maybe, I don't know, but anyway, that's a detail point. But anyway, I'm glad you've thought about it anyway. Yeah,
absolutely,
and yeah. Thank you.
Absolutely, and when we train, we've got a whole day's training for these stewards who are going to be outside doing that. That will be one of the things that we will certainly be training them on, judging how many are in the building, if it's a 1A in 1 out basis, or difficulties like that, and how to best deal with them. And certainly that would be a sensible measure to employ if we've got that person voter would go in, depending on the circumstances, vote, leave, and then we'll let everybody else in.
Okay, thanks, Ross. I would just sort of like to say, I know that a lot of work has gone into this. It's one of the reasons that we are considering quite a number of changes here, is because of the detailed work that you and the team have been doing on the risk assessments and so on. And it really is appreciated that, as you say, you know, a lot of work is going on behind the scenes to make sure that the polling day for the mayoral and GLA elections can be run as safely as is practicable. So we do appreciate it. And I have Councillor Rice to come in.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Ross. And I would just like to congratulate you, Ross, and your team for really doing a good job of getting the message out there to people to make sure they do sign up for postal votes. I've been speaking to a number of voters over the telephone and asking them, well, have you filled out your form? Have you signed up for a postal vote? A lot of them have already done so because they already understand that it's just not going to be a particularly safe option to deal with the queues and to deal with the issues that are there. But I just wondered what further publicity we're going to do to encourage people to sign up to have postal votes. What kind of work are we going to do on that's in around Ealing or on social media? And also just another question as well, if I may, please. Because we'll be having the potential for polling agents to go into polling stations and to see how the vote is getting on. One thing that's been put to me, I don't know how possible this would be, but one point that's been put to me is that would it be better if there was some way of actually getting information centrally, maybe by telephone or whatever, as to how things are going on in polling stations, so that we don't have even more traffic going through and having polling agents wanting to find out what's happening. Thank you.
Okay, so just to thanks for that, Councillor. Just on the comms aspect on the post voting, so 220,000 electors have effectively received a personalised postal voting application form with a free post BRE return envelope. So they have all landed, and as at today, we've had around 12,000 applications back, and they landed around the middle of last week in bulk. So accompanying that letter and form has been some online comms that's been in Ealing News Extra. So the comms team have been putting that out, that these postal vote application forms have been landing last week, and encouraging people to take that up. Going forward, we've got an article in around Ealing. I think it's a half-page or maybe a full-page spread in around Ealing, doing the same, but also giving the option of proxy as well. So it's not just all about postal. So effectively highlighting the options, the voting options. Clearly, we must be very careful, whereby polling stations will be safe for all the reasons, secure. They will meet all the requirements that and more that are being set down by Public Health for England, and guidance that we're getting from everywhere else. So we must find a balance between communicating that it will be a safe place to vote, but also the option of the postal vote is there. And so that's the route we're taking. There will be banners outside Percival House come the lead up to the election, in regards to how safe the stations will be. Bring your pen, pencils, etc. Again, on postal votings, there will be a banner outside Percival House just before the close of the deadline for postal votes to encourage people to take up postal votes, and there'll be some online, what we call free online advertising, because obviously we're limited with budgets to what we can spend on it. But the comms team have got a program where they'll be doing lots of tweets and social media stuff, again nearer the time. So hope that's okay on postal voting. The question with regards to candidates and agents and activities of supporters, now we are waiting for some central guidance. I think the parties are waiting for central guidance as well. There have been changes, as you know, in respect to social distancing measures and bans on people campaigning door to door, etc., and leaflet dropping, which I'm sure you're all aware of. But within the guidance that we're waiting on is clearly what centrally and what the Electoral Commission say around the matter of tellers, polling agents, etc. As soon as we get that guidance, the GLRO, the Greater London Returning Officer, will have a view, because after all, it's her election. The Greater London, she's the Greater London Returning Officer who Paul ultimately will report to for these elections. So she may well direct us to do something along those lines with regards to what the guidance is. But in direct answer to your question, Councillor, yes, we are looking, and I can't confirm at this stage, but we are looking to report on hourly turnout of votes by station. So we are looking into that, whereby every hour the presiding officer can text in their numbers of people who have been in to vote, and we'll have some clever system within the office whereby we can put it into a spreadsheet, and then we can then send that on to election agents. Is that kind of what you were looking for on that point?
That sounds very helpful, Ross, and I think that would be a very beneficial idea, because I think it probably will put a lot of people's minds at rest, as I say, if we can somehow reduce traffic going through. And I suppose maybe at this stage, just for the sake of transparency, just mention that I am an agent for one of the candidates of this election. So I'll just put that down. Thank you.
Yes, right. Thank you, Ross. So obviously we've diverted a little bit from going through the polling places here, which is fine, but I think it was all important to consider and for the questions to be asked. Again, just to show the amount of work that you are doing and with the team behind the scenes there. Thank you. So I think if we now return, and we should be able to move on relatively quickly, I think, through a lot of these proposals. So AHA, which was where we started, we had no objections, and I think we're happy to agree that, aren't we, panel?
Agreed.
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 Yeah.
Agreed.
So we'll move on to the next one, please, Keith.
Okay, so FA in Hanger Hill Ward is a temporary polling place well on the junction of Clarendon Road and Sandall Road. So it's on a grassy verge. Now, the issues with this particular one was in regards to the queues and the safety of queuing. It's just very dangerous with the road, and health and safety and our team.
Can we bring up the map, please, Chair? Can we bring up the map?
Councillor Kelly. Yes, I
the
did
map.
ask
The map.
Yeah, Keith, if we can just scroll the map on one, please.
Sorry, I thought I had. I've got it showing in a different way. I'll put it back to where it was. Hang on. Apologies. Thought it was.
You might have to stop sharing and reshare, Keith. Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to. Yeah, thank you.
I think it's gone back now. Sorry.
Oh.
I have it in front of me, but obviously members of the public won't be able to know what we're referring to.
Yep. I'm hoping it will come up any second now.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that it?
we've got it. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you.
Okay, so this is being recommended. I think Helen may want to come in. I think initially is recommended as a temporary change, but then I think we reconsidered it as possibly a permanent change due to just the fact that we're replacing a temporary polling place with a fixed building of the Crowne Plaza. Helen, I don't know whether you want to come in on whether we are recommending this just for this election or whether we are recommending it permanently.
Chair, would you like me to step in at this point?
Yes, please, Helen. Yes, if you want.
Just to make it clear to the panel that we went through the various recommendations quite carefully. You'll note we were recommending some as temporary changes where a polling station is temporarily unavailable. Others were recommending on a permanent basis, either because we judge the existing polling place to be permanently unavailable, so it feels very short-sighted to make a temporary change, or in the case of the temporary huts, where a change is being recommended for this election, we're actually saying that the let's do away with that temporary hut permanently, and the reason being we've identified that there are extra health and safety reasons at this election why really we cannot in all conscience guarantee health and safety within those buildings. However, my temporary huts have all sorts of health and safety challenges at the best of times, and everything we're hearing on top of that is that COVID in some form is going to be with us longer term, and it just feels to officers, feels to me short-sighted to say, okay, well, we'll bob back into these temporary huts as quickly as possible. They're not safe, and our recommendation is therefore that we look at permanent alternatives. What we can say, Chair, if the panel feels would like us to do so, that we can undertake an evaluation of how the alternatives work in these upcoming elections and review again then. But it would feel counterintuitive to go back to arrangements that we've already identified as being unsafe. That's why the recommendations we have before you are as they are in terms of permanent or temporary changes, Chair. But having said that, the prime, what we have to try and do this evening is get some sort of decision for those places that are either completely unavailable or in the case of these temporary huts deemed unsafe. The reason being poll cards we have to finalize the artwork and get that that artwork off to our printers by no later than the middle of next week if we're to meet the statutory dispatch date deadline for those poll cards. So hence yeah, that's how the timeline falls, Chair. I hope that's helpful.
Okay, yes, that is helpful. Thank you, Helen. And I think it's probably worth the panel considering just at this point, now as this is a sort of one of the temporary ones, that, you know, if we think about this for all of these temporary changes, that just how the panel feels, whether or not we're happy to make these actually permanent, or whether we'd like the review there that's been suggested, that perhaps we just agree them for this election, and, you know, for further review to see how it's worked at the election and whether there has been, you know, disproportionate or below average turnout at the said places where the temporary huts haven't been used, perhaps. So I don't know, does anyone have a view or wish to comment on that?
Can we just look at this individual one first? Because I have some reservations about the Crowne Plaza Hotel. The only access is via the gyratory, which is not very convenient at all.
Yes.
If you live the far end of the polling district in the top of Birkdale Road, you have to come all the way down the hill, along the valley, and then up another hill, and then go around the gyratory before you can get into the polling station. It's very inconvenient. I hear what you say about temporary polling places, but you have got plenty of room on the grass. You talk about a grass verge. It's a strip of grass that goes all the way down the middle of Clarendon Road from top to bottom. So you can make as much room as you want there.
Okay, I've got Councillor Donnelly wanting to come in as well. Is this on the location of this, Councillor Donnelly, or was it on recommendation?
Yes. No.
Yeah.
It's sort of connected. It was more that, I mean, I think Helen's point's right, and I think inevitably any decision we make, even if we don't think it's subject to review, it is, because circumstances change and render our decisions, temporary anyway. But it's pretty unusual for us to have a commercial premises as a location for a polling station. They're normally either things that are partly or wholly within our control, or they're community centres, or so it's more about really in terms of what are the longer term prospects for a commercial location like a hotel. I can see advantages. It's large, much larger than many of the places that we deal with. Probably a lot more airy. It's used to managing circulation of people, I suppose. But circumstances change and its priorities may change. So I think it just occurred to me that possibly it's not one that we would be able to count on. Or are we thinking of getting them to commit for 2022 as well, subject to us reviewing it as having been a success?
Yeah, Chair.
Thanks, Chair.
So I wanted to come on this one as well.
Yes.
I used to work at this site for many years, so I know it very well. But I think the overall question, which I think both Councillor Donnelly and Young have pointed out already, is that in effect, whatever we decide this evening in terms of for this particular election, we will clearly be meeting between now and the next any election in 2022 to make any final decisions about polling stations there. So, in effect, as Steve has said, these decisions this evening would be potentially temporary, although we would look to review them in the coming 12 months to make a determination ahead of the 2022 elections. And on this particular point, I can get Councillor Young's point about the access. I do think that it is reasonably accessible. Certainly, I think if you've got mobility issues in terms of driving, clearly there's plenty of parking space. I think there's an issue more around about the commercial. It's a commercial site, so how would that operate? And if we can discuss that in the public arena. The other bit is obviously in terms of, I'm assuming that we'll be using one of the conference facility spaces or the restaurant or something on that particular day. The two main conference rooms, which would be big enough to host this, are on the basement floor. And so in terms of direct access, you would have to still go down in a lift or down the stairs once you came in through the front or the back entrance. And I'm assuming that, so in terms of, what the actual logistics of using this particular space are, because it's not as direct access as some of the other buildings that we'd be looking to use.
Okay, thanks. And I've finally got John. Do you wish to come in as well on this? Is this specifically on this location, or is it more general?
Well, a bit of both, but I mean, the bit that's specifically on this is, it was really a question, but I think I remember that there's pedestrian access from the rear, isn't there? So if you're walking up from the rest of the polling district, you can walk into the back of the hotel, so you don't need to go around the very busy road to get to it. I think that's right, but was really a question.
It's sort of an unadopted area, though, isn't it?
Thanks, Anthony. Yeah.
I seem to remember delivering leaflets around there, and I could walk around the back of it, I think. But yeah, I seem to remember it wasn't really a proper road. No, probably not, is it? No. Okay.
No,
I guess
it's been closed off. But sorry, one other point, Chair, just before Helen comes in, was just if we do use it, the postcode on the report is wrong, so it says W3, it's W5. So I just want to make sure that clearly we use the right postcode on anything we publish. Yeah.
I guess the only other thing is we use a hotel. We went from a temporary polling station to a hotel in my ward, and that works okay. So I think the general principle of having a hotel isn't a problem, but the issue is more about whether the access is suitable or not, which perhaps it's not. If there isn't sort of convenient disabled access from the rear, it may not be fantastic.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. So obviously there's a lot there. I would just remind panel members, to come through the chair. I'm quite happy to be informal and relaxed about it, but we have had a couple of moments there with people speaking over each other, which really doesn't work on these Zoom meetings, so if we can just sort of try and keep a bit of discipline about us. And Helen, would you like to come back in?
Yes, Chair. Points, and I think Ross will need to pick up these specifics about the hotel access. First of all, picking up Councillor Young's point about the existing temporary hut and the space on the verge. We have had the council's health and safety experts looking very carefully at all of our temporary huts. You'll recall we have, I think, 15 temporary huts still remaining. There are proposals on the agenda this evening for 7 of those to be changed. That means 7 of them have been judged. Our experts have advised that yes, there are ways. They're not ideal, but there are ways of making them safe. And specifically those sorry, no, I'm getting my maths wrong. The 8 that will be remaining are for smaller electorates. So the issues that Ross was talking about of no more than 2 people in at a time in those temporary places are manageable. It's the huts, the 7 that we've got on the agenda this evening are the ones with the larger electorates. The issue about using a commercial building, I completely agree. They're not ideal. They're also quite a lot of money. They're more than the other locations we generally use, but the reason that it's being proposed in this location, obviously it's the locations where we have the temporary huts at the moment are the ones where it's really challenging to find an alternative. That's why we've got the temporary hut, and that's why we're looking at a commercial premise in this case, because there really isn't, there aren't a lot of options in that area. Not for tonight, please, bearing in mind the ticking clock that we have in terms of getting these resolved and the time it takes to examine new options. But if members in any of these areas, have ideas for alternatives, then please do let us know, but within a timeline that gives us plenty of time to inspect those alternatives. I don't know whether Ross may be able to pick up the issue of how to get into this hotel, because I don't know it myself.
Yes, thanks, Helen. Yeah, well, if you can pick up some of the finer details there that were raised about the actual operations around the hotel. I don't know if you have that detail,
I may have to. I don't actually have that in front of me, but one of my officers did visit there and did a full risk assessment. The access is I don't know particular Sandsocket. I don't know whether you're on the call and you know the access, but as far as I understand, there was no way it would be recommended if the access wasn't both DDA compliant and suitable. The room that we are the main reception rooms for function rooms are downstairs and accessed by a lift. However, we are using a room prepared for especially on the ground floor, which is just to the right of the check-in desk. And we will have stewards both inside and outside, ensuring that and the one-way the directional arrows will be on the floor going through the building into that room for the voters and back out again. So I am assured that there is no way that we would recommend a site if the access wasn't suitable, and that goes for all of the sites. With regards to it being a hotel, we do use the Hilton Doubletree, which is a hotel in another ward. And with regards to commercial sites, I think it's important to note that obviously Boundaries has for a number of years, the policy has been that we do not use schools, and we must use all other available buildings over schools. Now, as you will all be aware, that the availability now of council premises, community centres, whatever they may, has decreased considerably over the years. And so we do have a challenge. We have a challenge in Ealing. We have a polling district review coming up in the summer with regards to the new wards and the polling districts within those wards. And we have a large number of polling stations, much larger than anywhere else in London per head. We certainly have the largest number of temporary huts. So I think this is maybe not for this evening, but there is a whole discussion to be had on, just the availability of fixed buildings to be used as polling stations going forward. So I just thought I'd mention that. So with regards to logistics and space and the access, which will be highlighted on the poll card, there will also be a polling station finder online where it will have a picture of the entrance. It will have details about the venue, photographs and whatnot, and for electors to go in. The poll card will obviously say this is a new polling station. It will have a map on the back of the poll card that will direct the voter to that station. Hopefully, Chair, maybe have I missed something there, or somebody wants to come back on any of those points?
Yeah, well, I've got a number of hands gone up now. Thanks, Ross. So if we go through them, Helen, did you want to come back first on anything particular that you wanted to raise before people?
No,
have
sorry, my hand's still up. I think I should have lowered it. Apologies.
That's fine. And then Councillor Donnelly, did you want to come back in?
No, ditto for me, Chair.
Yes, and Bassam, is that the same?
No, so I think from Ross's comments about using that room on the right as you come in through the front entrance, I think that gives me the assurance about the access. I think it is very accessible as a building, more generally as you'd expect from a hotel, to be honest. And I think with the parking facilities for those people who are less able in terms of walking there, because I appreciate obviously it's Hanger Hill. It is on a hill. It's going to be steep for some people, but you can't really get around that. I think it's a good choice overall, and would be supportive of moving ahead with it. Yeah,
great. And Councillor Young, you wanted to come back.
I'm still worried about the access for the elderly and the disabled. If you're a blue badge holder, you've got to drive around the gyratory and get in off that gyratory into the Claren Plaza parking lot. Do we know that they're going to have access to the parking facilities there or not?
Yes, they will do. Yes, we will. There will be access. Yeah.
It's not easy to get in there and get out. I've tried it once or twice. It's quite difficult.
Yeah. I mean, if I can just come in, we have sent postal votes. I mean, postal voting is on demand. I'm not saying we should mandate disabled people to have a postal vote because we can't make the polling station accessible. I'm not saying that, but there is that option, obviously, for people.
If you live close to the existing polling station, you won't know that it's going to be moved. How will they know it's going to be moved until they receive their polling card? And even then, they may not pick up on it.
Yeah, well, it will say on polling card very clearly that it's a new polling station, and they will have 3 weeks. Part of the reason why we get the cards out early, they will land the day after the notice of election, and it will be very clear on there to how to apply for a postal vote, and they'll have about 3 weeks to apply up until the 20th of April to apply for a postal vote.
Did we look at any other sites? Isn't there a changing facility in the Foxwood Nature Reserve for the football pitch there?
Santok, could I bring you in here?
Yeah,
if you're on the call.
I'm not aware of that facility. although judging from previous experience, sites like this are not really usually suitable.
Why not?
Well, could be changing rooms, and they could be small and perhaps not as clean as voters would expect.
Could we look at that as an alternative? It's only just a short distance up Fox Lane from the existing polling station.
I could go round there tomorrow, Councillor. What's what if you just it'll be in the yeah. I can visit that tomorrow if you would like me to and report back.
I've only ever seen it from the outside. I haven't been inside, so I can't say how much room there is. But it's the only other site that I can think of, other than the temporary polling place in Clarendon Road, that's in the polling district.
Yeah, I mean, I would be very surprised. Stick my neck out here. Clearly, it's not the first time we've reviewed temporary stations. It's been going on since I've been at Ealing, nearly 20 years, and clearly in this area, there's always been an issue, and we have put a lot of resource in the past into looking at alternatives. But clearly, buildings have to meet all kinds. It's outdoor lighting, it's approach, it's DDA access. We've now got new ones with COVID, with ventilation and all kinds of other things. But if it's the view of the panel, then we can certainly. I don't know, Helen, you want to come in? I mean, maybe we could look subject to that not being to look into that, but subject to that not being okay, then we would default. I don't know, or Chair, how you would want to work that.
Yes, just before we go to that, Councillor Mahfouz, did you want to come in briefly on this?
Yeah, I did, because I think one of the other things about selecting a polling station is it's got to be somewhere where people know where it is, especially if we're changing it. And the fact that Councillor Young doesn't even know what the building looks like, how to get there, and that it's down.
I do know how to get there, and I do know what it looks like. I haven't been inside
it. You've not been inside. It's not clearly a popular location in terms of where everyone would know where it was, and it's the other one is everyone will know where it is, certainly, and they'll still have 3 weeks to say, actually, I'd rather vote by post for a whole raft of reasons. And I think it would make far more sense to go ahead with that, which
I don't think they'll know the hotel any better than the
staff 24/7. Has got very adequate lighting, and the team have already done all that work, rather than sending on I was going to say a wild goose chase, but a wild fox chase to try and find out what this building looks like.
Yes, and Helen, did you want to come in here?
Yes, I mean, obviously, we officers will be directed by the panel on this, but it was just a plea. I know Ross Jackson and his team and Santok are already. I think weekends are already cancelled. They're already working into the evenings. So if the panel could bear that in mind when you're thinking about what you're asking.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to say that actually, I have circulated this to all ward councillors and asked for feedback. I think we've gone through this in quite a lot of detail, and one of the feedback from the ward councillors here, Councillor Sumner, was that he was happy with the changes being made. So with that in mind, I'm happy for us to go ahead.
Fair, the other wasn't.
Yes, no, he wasn't. We've got a split decision, so I'm just sort of giving a chair's guidance, if you like, that I'm happy for us to go ahead with it being used as a polling station. I'm happy to put that to a vote of the panel if you'd like. Councillor,
I'd vote against. I don't see why it isn't possible to look at an alternative. It may not be possible, but at least we should look at it.
Yeah, well, I think the officers have done a lot of work here. I do know, and like you, I know the pavilion only by sight. It is small. I think that the full risk assessment that Ross is going to go and do, I'd probably be quite surprised if it actually came out and it was usable, just because of the size and some of the access for it and getting people in and out. But I don't know. I mean, like I say, I'm happy to go ahead and sort of recommend this change. I'm happy for the panel to vote on that.
Agreed, Chair.
I mean, would you like a seconder, or do we?
Don't need a second committee.
Yeah, just to the vote. So, you know, for those in favour, if you want to raise your hand in the chat there.
Oh, right, on the chat.
All the participants, yes, no.
Yeah, the participants, yeah. Sorry, so I can see it.
I've raised my hand and pressed yes.
Yes.
So
yeah,
that's 2.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's quite clearly. Yeah. That's
one supplants the other.
And indicated verbally.
Yeah. So we've got 6 councillors voting in favour there. I know it's Councillor Young voting against as well, for the record. So we're happy to go ahead on that basis, I think, and then we'll
Chair,
move on.
so jump in. Could I ask, just as you go through, that you clarify for the minutes whether the changes are being agreed on a permanent basis or whether they're being done on a temporary basis, and you would like us to look again at this in the future?
Yes, of course, Helen. Sorry, yes, because we'd started off, this had got a bit too standard, hadn't it? So, yes, I mean, are we happy for this to be looked at again? I think, as sort of councillors Donnelly and Mahfouz both noted, that, you know, the panel will come back to agree further, you know, polling station changes, you know, before the next election in a year's time. So, I think if we look at it just for this election, is the panel happy with that?
Great.
Agreed.
Agreed.
Okay, right, thank you. And we'll move on now to the next one, please, Keith. So, and Ross, so to you again, please.
Hi, yes, so this is polling district PF, Northolt West End. It's a temporary, again. Now, this serves a large electorate, 1,783. So it really does have the potential, if you can imagine, it can only take 2 at a time for queues to build up significantly at peak voting times. I just, you know, whatever we do, it is what it is. And so again, for the same reason, we are proposing that it's moved to Middlesex Football Association on Rectory Park, as you can see on the map.
Okay, thanks. Any comments there? I did hear Councillor Mahfouz, who might have an interest here.
Hi, Chair. Yeah, so obviously in my ward, and I think a great piece of work here by Ross and the team to secure Middlesex FA site for this particular one. I think it's been, as you say, it's a lot of electors in this particular polling district, and it makes a lot of sense to have the polling. Yeah, I appreciate technically the polling station's just the other side of the road of the polling district, but it makes eminent sense to use that site for this polling station. I know that NK later on is also being proposed for this site, though, so I will be raising question marks on that one. But for this one, I think it's eminently sensible and a good, very good move. So,
yeah, okay. Is the panel all happy with that? But we agree this?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Oh, Chair, is that a permanent change?
Again, yes. I think this is just for review again, following this election. Are the panel happy with that?
Yeah. So sorry for Helen's clarity. Then we're going to say that all of these are for one election only.
Yes, I think that we can come back and review them again. The panel will need to meet again anyway.
Chair,
I mean,
so to hop in as a point of information, I understand. I really don't know what's going to come of it, but I understand that third parties are looking at are trying to garner signatures for a mayoral referendum. So there is the possibility of elections borough-wide polls much sooner than May 2022. Just throwing that in there.
Right. Yes, I mean, I do understand that concern. I think you know, it's a bit difficult for us to sort of speculate on what may or may not happen there. I think that most importantly, we need to get these decisions made. As you said, the most pressing concern is to get these decisions made for this election. And, you know, if necessary, you know, the panel can always meet again at another point of time, should it be needed. I think we'd probably have to review in that case as well, possibly, you know, just exactly, I'd like clarity on what the rules are around the that sort of election on a referendum for an executive mayor, and whether we could sort of reduce numbers of polling stations or combine them or what have you. But again, it might be difficult given the circumstances of a pandemic. But I think there's quite a lot of unknowns in that area. So if we just agree these for these elections only, if the panel's happy with that.
Chair, if I may suggest, maybe table that we agree that these would be the polling stations throughout 2021, and then that gives us a bit more time, so we don't have to necessarily meet again if there were an emergency election between between May and December. It wouldn't. Clearly, we'll also be doing the polling district work as part of the boundary changes anyway, which would impact and inform what we do for 2022. But I guess that would allow us some breathing space, whether to be, you know, some sort of election between May and later on this year.
Yes,
good suggestion.
I'm happy to take that. That seems a sensible point, Councillor Mahfouz. Yes, so I'm happy to agree that if the panel is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay, thank you all. So if we move on then to the next one, please, Keith.
Okay, thanks. So this is VA Walpole, St John's Church Lounge, Mattock Lane. It's being used as a COVID vaccination centre. So we've had quite a few of these pop up, but clearly, you know, where there is an alternative, we support the vaccinations. Bit of a battle of who trumps who, but clearly in this case, we found an alternative for Westside Youngs People Centre. It's got good facilities just down the road, and yeah, that's what we're proposing for just this election. But again, under the same circumstance, that makes perfect sense to make it 2021, because presumably the vaccination centres are going to be with us until at least middle of the summer.
Yes, absolutely. As this is my ward, I'd have to say I'm quite happy with this change. It's sort of literally across the road. It's no more than sort of 30 or 40 metres away, I think. So I'm happy for this to go ahead. Does the panel agree?
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Agreed.
And on to the next one then, please, Keith.
So the next one, WB Northfield, is the Living Hope Church. Now, our information is, well, the polling place isn't available. It's been sold to developers, and our information is that they plan to demolish the building and erect several houses and flats. And the building's also been decommissioned, so we just cannot use it. Now, that polling district is particularly tough. We cannot identify any other suitable fixed buildings in that polling district. So we looked to the polling district in WF. Now, as some members will recall, we used to use Little Ealing Primary School not long ago for voters in WF. Big pushback on using that with the school, and we moved that to somewhere within WF. So we identified the Assyrian Society as the most suitable nearest fixed station on Temple Road. Now, we did look at a number of alternatives, including I think it's the Hungarian Centre, which I believe is being used as a ward for or of some description. But each time we have approached that building, and we've approached it for several times to my knowledge, we have just had nothing but pushback from the key holders of that premises. So I know it was suggested recently that is slightly nearer. It's a 3-minute 3 minutes closer if you were to walk it, but we've discounted it because they're just not up for playing ball for us using it.
Right, thank you. Yes, I mean that was the feedback that was given by ward councillors there, that St Stephen's House would be a good location. However, if if they're not willing, if you have tried and they haven't been willing, then obviously we can't go ahead with that. So are people then happy to review this proposal in front of us? Yes, Councillor Kelly?
Yeah, it's Councillor Kelly, Anthony.
Yep, go on, hello? Anthony. Then
yeah,
I've got
I'm happy to agree this, but just while I've got Ross and his team, he may want to contact the Dementia Concern UK office at the junction of Convent Gardens and Windmill Lane, because they've recently sort of turned their office into a bigger space. So they might be somebody to put on the list to contact. And I know I work for them, so if you want an introduction, I'd be happy to do so for you.
Thank you, Councillor. Sorry, Chair, is it okay if I respond to that?
Yes, yeah, go on, Ross, please.
Yeah, thanks for that. We certainly will do. I mean, Santok, do you have any intel on that building at Covent?
I'm not aware of this building, unfortunately.
Okay.
It's had recent extension. I'm not talking about for this election, but it's just something to put on your radar. But if Santok wants to give me a call, I'm happy to make any interest.
I think we'll be happy to investigate that one for the future elections.
Yeah, they've sort of spent a lot of money in disabled access, etc. With some.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Anthony. Well, that can be looked at for the future then. So perhaps on this item, then I think we've got Councillor Sabiers.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I just wanted, because obviously there's a bit more of a distance, can we make sure that we've got good signposting from where the old one was to the new one in case people turn up? I've noticed a couple of times, and we've had like a little bit of paper stuck outside and it's blown away in strong winds. And I just think with the distance of that, it would be helpful if we could have a bit more or a commitment that says, particularly if we're saving 28k on this whole project, looking at the report, we probably can afford a little bit on that one, although Helen might disagree. But I was just wondering if we could have a bit better signposting, but if possible. Thanks, that's all. But otherwise, I think it's good to go.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. And Councillor Mahfouz.
Yeah, so I guess Councillor Kelly's suggestion is a good one in terms of it's on Windmill Lane, clearly not for this election. I think they've just finished the work on the building, haven't they? I guess if we're looking at commercial buildings, then just to throw in the mix, the plough on the other corner might be one we want to consider.
Yeah. Now I know that there has been a proposal as well, or a suggested alternative of pubs before. I know that previously, we haven't sort of used pubs or moved away from them because of licensing, and some voters sort of not being willing or feeling uncomfortable to be using public houses, certainly. But I don't know if there's anything you'd like to come back with there, Ross.
Yeah, I mean, it would certainly be useful. I mean, we are running out of buildings, unfortunately. I mean, if in the future we're permitted to start. I mean, it has been quite a strong view of the panel not to use places that serve alcohol due to demographics of the borough. Where we have used places, I mean, the golf club is a good example. The Norfolk, we take the alcohol away and out of the place and shutter things up so it can't be seen, but it might be a bit more difficult to do that in a pub proper. Santok, with regards to the plough, did we look at the plough at all? Because I know we have as an absolute backstop for this because we've been struggling. We were considering.
Honestly, it's more of a sort of I wouldn't take it too far. I mean, I think the suggestion of the Assyrian Society on Temple Road is a very good one, and it's straightforward for most people there, and so we should go ahead with it, really.
Yeah. Okay, I just have Councillor Rice, who's been waiting patiently. Thank you, Miriam.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Yes, I mean, I'm all for this particular option. I think the one thing I'm just in my mind, because it's quite a main road along there, and there'd be probably a lot of footfall, maybe people going after buses and using shops, etc. And so I just hope that if there is any possibility of any queues forming, that can all be managed, that we don't end up with a queue very near where people need to be walking up and down. But I'm assuming it should be okay. But I don't know the site that well enough to be able to anticipate what the queues will be. But hopefully that'll be fine. Thank you.
Yes, well, I think it sounds like we're all pretty happy with this proposal, given some of the feedback there and Councillor Rice's comments. I think Ross's team have risk assessed all of these, and will have stringent management for numbers coming in, possibly with teams to be deployed as needed if there's a particular problem or a surge of voters in one particular place or not. Is that fair to say, Ross?
It is, Chair. I think this. I can't promise. I mean, we've got 150 sites. We've done risk assessments for them all. It's there's nothing else that I know of that goes on in the country. Certainly during where we've got 150 sites, we've got to equally manage, all with different challenges. All I can do is assure you that we are looking into absolutely everything. We'll have standby, we'll have plan Bs and plan Cs for all of these sites. But what we cannot avoid is peak voting time. So if they stay at peak voting times, obviously it's different. There may not be the old peak voting times of late afternoon, early evening, and just before 9 o'clock in the morning. That may well change now if people are still working from home. But clearly, if we have peak periods, it will be. I can't promise it's going to run perfectly at all 150 sites. There will be some firefighting that will have to go on because we just can't control, like any other shop, business, vaccination centre, testing centre. There are going to be queues, which is why we're trying to mitigate with the postal voting, with the communications, with the removing of the temporary huts where we've got higher electorates. But all I can do is assure you that we're on the case, and we'll do absolutely everything we can within our powers. Now, clearly, we'll be looking when I meet with the agents, certainly after the nominations have come in and we have the one-to-one with the agents. I think it will be a two-way thing between us if we can, and things can be reported back to us, because it's going to be a very fluid situation on the day. But absolutely, we'll be doing our very best to ensure that all this is safe and professionally organised across all 150 sites.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Ross. And we have Councillor Ball. Did you want to come in on this point, particularly on this location?
Yeah. Well, it's the interaction between this and the EV one next to it. So we haven't got on to EB yet, but the proposal for that is to move the station rather further away, and actually the Assyrian temple would be a better location for EB. So I'm not quite sure how we deal with that, because they sort of interrelate with each other.
Yeah. Shall we take that at the EB point then?
Yeah. Okay.
John, if we come back to that, thanks. Yes. So we're happy to agree these changes then, panel.
Yes.
Yes.
Agreed.
Great.
Agreed.
Okay. Thank
Agreed.
you. So we'll move on to the next one.
Okay, so
yeah,
sure. So this is ZD, Dormers Wells. Dormers Wells Place Centre has been decommissioned. We've been kind of hoping it would still be ready for us, and the works wouldn't take place until after, but that can't be assured, and it looks ever likely that the works will take place very, very soon. It's being transformed to a youth centre, so it's not available. So we had a couple of options here. One was a primary school, and we've chosen again the least of the two evils with regards to disruption. And we're proposing Dormers Wells Leisure Centre as the temporary solution just for this election. Hopefully, we'll revert back to the Dormers Wells hub. I think it's going to be referred to going forward at future elections.
Yes, thanks. So all ward councillors were happy with this change, was the feedback I had. So I think we're happy to agree that, are we, panel?
Agreed.
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 Thank you. So on to the next one then, please, Keith.
Okay, so we've so CDA in Southfield, temporary polling place on Cleveland. It's got 1,700 electors going to it, so similar reasons as for others previously mentioned. So we're proposing that we use St Peter's Church Hall, which is actually the existing polling place for CEA. We're looking to place that. We'll split the hall and we'll have two in the same hall. Again, not ideal. I think Councillor Ball quite right to raise earlier. It's not ideal to have under COVID in a hall, but it is the lesser of the two evils with regards to having a one in, one out temporary hut.
Does anyone want to comment on this proposal? Councillor Ball, is that hand legacy or is it on this?
It's a new one. I mean, just to say, I think there are concerns about it, but I know the ward councillors were okay with it to happen for this election only. I think we've decided we're going to review them all anyway, but this one would definitely be one that we would want to think again about.
And Councillor Sabiers.
Yes, thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to reiterate, I remember visiting this as a counting agent a couple of times, and it's quite a busy one, even without the other one adding to it. What Ross mentioned about having stewards around, it may well be that this is one where you ID this as an early one to have people nearby to drop in just in case it gets a little bit packed. So that's the only thing, but otherwise happy to agree.
Okay, are we happy to agree this then, panel?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you. And we'll move on to the next. So,
okay, so EB Ealing Common, again, temporary polling station, 1,700 electors for the same reasons, moving to the Polygon, which is a large station, existing station, noted, but it's also the existing polling place for EC, and it will be again a busy station, but again for the reasons that the lesser of the two evils.
Okay, thanks. So Councillor Ball, then, do you want to come in?
Yes, thanks. I think there's a couple of problems with it. I mean, one is that it's quite a long walk for people to go to from there. If somebody was at Spruce Court or something, right at the other corner, they've got quite a long L-shaped walk because you can't go diagonally between there and St Mary's because there's a tube line in the way. So you can only cross at either Elderbury or Olive. So it's, as I say, people on foot. It's actually quite a long way. But the other point is just that St Mary's is already a large polling station, a busy station, and then you're adding on EB is another busy large station. So it will be a very large number of electors. As far as I could see, they'd all be going through the same front door because the only other door to the Polygon is a kind of fire exit around the back that would be awkward to access. So it seems to me that there's, as I said, there's a distance issue and also an issue in terms of potential long delays because you're squeezing people through one doorway. So I mean, thank you for consulting ward councillors previously, and in reply to that, I suggested a couple of alternatives. There's although they both fall foul of the issue about premises serving alcohol. So but there's the West 5 bar, which is just outside the polling district. It's the other side of Pope's Lane, so there are electors directly across the road from it. And the other one I suggested was Roddy's Bar, which is, again, it's just the other side of South Ealing Road. But yeah, I mean, the Assyrian Temple is another possibility because that's just the opposite side of the road from some of these electors. So it's significantly closer to get to. So I guess so there are and another one I didn't mention in that email but I thought of later is there's also a scout hut on Pope's Lane, which I guess that's, again, it's just outside the polling district. So I guess questions for Ross about whether those alternatives have been looked at, and if not, I guess the question is whether it might make more sense to have 2 stations in the Assyrian Temple rather than having 2 stations at St Mary's.
Okay, and Councillor Mahfouz, is this on this one?
Yes, Chair. So yeah, similarly, when I saw it, I didn't think the Polygon would be a good choice in terms of as an alternative. And clearly, you know, so my first thought was that the Assyrian Temple, which is literally across the road for a lot of these, for most people in this zone, would make the most sense. Clearly, we then have a challenge of not having not just 1 polling district or 2 polling districts, but potentially 3 polling districts trying to vote in the same polling station, which would have a knock-on impact and therefore might be an issue. But I think the Gavin Hall, which is the Scout Hut, would be a perfect alternative location for you know, as a polling station for this particular polling district. If we're able to secure it, I do think that the Temple Road site would be a good plan B. But I think there are significant challenges with the Polygon in terms of access, because for many of them they'll be going through either having to go all the way down to South Ealing Road, which obviously can be some distance for most to do that. Alternatively, you're crossing over at Olive Road on a very narrow bridge over the railway, which in itself, you know, doesn't necessarily feel very safe. You're then going through an alleyway by the school, which again, whilst lit in the evenings, isn't exactly, you know, the most attractive of places that we should be encouraging people to walk down at odd times of the day and so on. And so I'd really encourage an alternative, one of those 2 alternatives is either the Scout Hut or the Temple Road site.
Okay, and Helen, did you want to come in here?
Sorry, this is not strictly a director's point, but this is my St Mary's is actually, Polygon is my polling station, and I do novelly still vote in person, but I think there are 2 polling districts there already, so I think this would be a 3rd, but I know there are 2 there already.
Well, there are 2, sorry, Chair. Yeah, there are 2 boxes there, which just shows what a big station is. So there are already 2 boxes. So this would mean you'd have 3 boxes.
Yeah.
Okay, Ross, would you like to come back on that and the Polygon, and also the use of the Assyrian Centre? Would that be suitable? Would it fit more in?
Possibly. I take on board all. You know, we have identified this as a high, as one of our high risks. Just on the Polygon, just to clear, it's not 2 polling districts. It is normally split with 2 boxes for the same polling district. But in order to help out with this one, we've made it 1 box, and with this box going in, so it wouldn't be 3, it would be 2. Now the Assyrian. Sorry if I bring in. Santok. Well, first of all, if I can just deal with the Scout Hut first with Santok. Santok, do you have any views on the Scout Hut, and also secondly on the electorate that would be subsequently going if we swapped it over to the Assyrian, bearing in mind we've just moved a polling district into there?
Right. Okay. If I remember rightly, we have inquired about the Gavin Hall in previous years, and I think they may have a nursery there, if I remember rightly from previous time. And they were not happy. They were not allowing us to use that. There is another Scout Hut further down Pope's Lane, which we used to use many years ago, but that's, I think, derelict now. Regarding the Assyrian Hall, that is large enough and near enough as well to be used. I think that's quite reasonable.
Okay. Yeah, Ross, would you like to come back?
Sure. I mean, yeah. I mean, absolutely. The Assyrian. Yeah, I would be happy with that. Looks Santok knows that site, so if it's, you know, if that will help us all out, then we could move that. If people would be happy with that, move them into the Assyrian. The Assyrian will become a double.
Yeah. Okay, so is the panel happy then with the move not to, as is shown in the papers, but instead to the Assyrian Society, and to have 2, you know, for that to have 2 polling districts in it.
Are we? Sorry, Chair. So we've got assurances that the Assyrian Society can have 2 boxes.
Yes, that's what Santox just told us, I think. Yes.
Okay. Well,
I think
that's definitely better.
Chair, I mean, I've been in there myself. It's certainly big enough to host 2 or 3 boxes for definite.
Yeah.
Because it's not in. Well, we moved WB in there, but it's not in WB polling district. It's in another polling district.
I was going to say, Chair. I mean, if it was
different constituencies as well.
I mean, doesn't really matter for this particular election.
Yeah, I don't think it really matters the constituencies. It's just having the physical place, isn't it?
Yeah, just an observation. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, Chair, if we had too many voters going to the Assyrian Church, if you look at the polling district that actually votes the Assyrian Church, you also have Northfields Library within that, which would make an eminent sense as a polling district as well. However, what I don't want to suggest right now is something that would just have a domino impact, and you then have people who didn't vote at their normal polling station, whereas it was still being used as a polling station, but for people who didn't normally use it as a polling station, I would think would be incredibly confusing. And hence why I wouldn't suggest it. But I think if Santox suggesting that actually we could, Temple Road, which having been in myself, the Assyrian Centre could host those 3 polling stations. And let's be honest, the previous one that we considered is a very, very small polling district. And I think it would be reasonable to move with that, because that would be better for democracy overall, because people would be able to go somewhere which is far more accessible.
Yeah.
Do you have any other polling stations with 3 polling districts?
And Councillor Ball, do you just want to come in, and then perhaps Ross can just come back?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I think I'm in favour of this, regardless of the answer to this, but I'd be even more in favour of it depending on the answer. Do we know, are there more than one door that can be used here? Is it, can we have different rooms accessible from different doors? I mean, I know it's quite a big building, but I'm not sure the exact layout. Thanks.
Ross, would you like to pick that up and perhaps just reply as well to Councillor Young's point that he made?
Yeah, so the Assyrian Centre is being used to take in on the previous, just scrolling up, so that's to take in WB that used to go to Living Hope. There's no one else in the Assyrian, so it would only be 2 going in there. It'd be 2 polling districts, so it would be WB and now EB. And so with regards to the access, I obviously we've done a risk assessment on it for one station for the suggestion for WB. If I say that we'll go and re-look at it to see if we can get 2 entrances in.
Chair, if I can be helpful to Ross, there are 2 or more doors in and out, one of which is quite a large double door, so you wouldn't have an issue.
Yeah, I think I would, even if there were to, obviously we've got to go and assess it, because the electors wouldn't know necessarily which door to go through. So leave that with me, and if we can make best use of the 2 doors, then we will, of course. But we'll obviously, if the whole Santoc is big enough, so we will by hook or by crook make the arrangements to make sure that the flow is good and the queues are as short as they can be. And yeah, if you leave that with us, and we'll relook at that.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. Thank you, Ross. And I think just possibly just for future elections, not to worry about now, but I think Northfields Library, now it's a sort of community library, would be a place that would make a good polling station, if that can be considered for the future for perhaps a polling place.
If I can just come in for a moment, we use the log Log Cabin Children's Center as a polling station, as a double one, and Northridge Library is right next to it. If we had 2 polling stations there, then it would cause confusion to voters as to which side they should be going to.
Yeah, no, that's fair point, I think. There.
Sorry, Chair,
Yes.
I'm just a bit confused. If the Log Cabin Children's Centre is being used, and we're saying that we want to not use school sites, so surely the same would apply to a children's centre. And I don't know. I mean, I guess it's up to the trustees at the Log Cabin, I guess, but they're literally right next to it. We wouldn't say that we would have 2 next to each other. You would say that you would use the library instead of the Log Cabin. I guess just for consideration. We're not suggesting that it doesn't have to be sorted this evening, but it's just
no, perhaps that can be looked at for the future, certainly. So I think if we just get back onto point now, so onto EB, we are happy, just to be clear, that the panel is happy with this moving the site to the centre. Yes,
Subject to the risk assessment.
yes,
Agreed.
If it fails the risk assessment, then we should revert to St Mary's Church.
yes, that would be our only option. Yes. So okay. Thank you. And on to the next one then, please, Keith. And Ross.
Okay, hi, yeah, so JD, Perivale, another temporary polling place, 1600 going into this one for the same reasons as mentioned before, to move to St Nicholas Church Hall, which is also the existing polling place for JE.
Yeah. So, okay, now we did have feedback from the ward councillors on this. And, given we've been going on for a while now, they were happy with this change for this election. So are we happy to agree this for this election or for 2021, as we've agreed the others?
agreed.
Agreed.
So I think
Agreed.
if we can perhaps just say that, I mean, I'm sure you have had a good look round, Ross, but perhaps another place within this polling district or close to this polling district might need considering in the future, but we'll revisit that at another time. So yes, on to the next one then, thanks.
Okay, so the next one is NH, Greenford Broadway, temporary polling place, 1400 electorate. So we are looking for permission to use the Johnson's Hall, Greenford Community Centre. It's also the existing polling place for MB, so we would have NH and MB going in there.
Okay. Again, the feedback from ward councillors that they are happy with this. So is the panel happy to agree this?
Agreed.
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 Thank you. And is the
okay, and last but not least, temporary polling place. So NK, Greenford Broadway. Another temporary polling place with a higher electorate, 1500, to move to the aforementioned Middlesex Football Association, where we're also agreed earlier to move another one into.
Yep. So Councillor Foos.
Thanks. So just to check, Ross, in terms of the current polling station for NC, because I would have thought that whatever the polling station for NC was would have made more sense than this. But I just as a question to start off with.
I think the polling station for NC, the room itself, I think it's a little small for 2 polling stations. And that's the reason why we didn't choose that one.
Is that the education centre, Santok? Sorry, everybody.
No,
NC is
the Rectory Park Community Centre. It's a
Right.
new building, but it is a little bit on the small side for 2 stations.
Okay, well,
Okay.
fair enough. I guess it's for this one election only. I would have just thought it's sort of the more likely place because it's just literally across the road. So, but I think if that's not possible, then this would be the next best option. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Are we happy to agree that then, panel?
Agreed.
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 Agreed. Right. Okay. Thank you very much. And that brings us all to the end of the business. It was a little bit longer than I'd anticipated. I'd have to say, when politicians start discussing polling centres and stations, same as and boundaries, then these things do tend to go on a little bit. Everyone likes to have their opinion, and it's good to have the feedback and knowledge as well from ward councillors. So I'd like to thank those who have responded to me. And I think is it for the evening then.